Good evening, everyone. I'm Jamie Ecker, the Chair of the Recycling and Sustainability Committee, and thanks for having us here tonight. Also here with me tonight is Steve Weems, our co-chair, and between us, we hope that we get any feedback on what we're about to present. So in our brief but moderately spectacular 5 minutes that we have here, we're going to cover three things. We're going to go over an overview of our charter with a couple key facts about how the committee is organized for those of you that don't know. We're going to review our 2022, what we call efforts and accomplishments, and then we have 2023 goals, which we'll go over. Before I start going over that, though, as you all know, our work's advisory. We serve at your pleasure. And we bring all substantive recommendations back to you, the council, for approval on any action on them. And though we pride ourselves on being a pretty active committee, we do our work with a lot of help from staff, the town manager, our liaison, Jay Astle, and others. So we very much view the work we do and the goals and accomplishments you'll see for 2022 as being really a community and town effort. It's not just a committee effort. So I just wanted to say that from the start. Okay, next slide. So a few things on our charter. Those of you that might not have dusted it off since the last time it was upgraded, which was 2007, 15 years ago. It's three basic elements you can boil it down to. It's to develop a plan to assess Brunswick's greenhouse gas emissions. It's to develop recommendations for the sustainable management of Brunswick's solid waste and recycling programs. And third, it's to develop recommendations about living sustainably in Brunswick, including management of the town's operations and government. A couple other notable items. We have a 9-member committee. We normally have full membership. We are short one right now, so we're hoping to add another soon. Our focus, the best way we've seen to organize ourselves is we're essentially organized into three subcommittees, one focused on solid waste management, one focused on energy and sustainability, and currently one focused on public education. And then again, I'll note, because we'll be coming back to you sometime soon with an update of that 2007 charter. It's time it got modernized, and it's time you got to look at it, and we know now there's a process to do that. So we'll be getting in the process here soon. In terms of 2022 goals and accomplishments, I'm not going to read every line here, but basically we had five goals when we set out this year. First was to support the council and staff in finalizing a 10-year solid waste and recycling contract with EcoMaine, and that was achieved. It said simply there, but I know John and others know that was a 3+ year odyssey, and credit to staff for getting that done and in place this past July. The second was to support staff in executing on the organics grant, which we won in 2021. And to remind you, that grant was for the town to expand residential organics recycling. And the goal is to try to double the amount of organics that are recycled in town from 200 tons a year to 400 tons a year. And on that one, I'd say we've had fantastic progress. We're a little over a year and a half into it. It's a 2-year grant program. A lot of great efforts on it, but there's some key indicators that have really ticked up nicely, the ones we can measure. Curbside subscriptions are up 44%. Second drop-off center has been established out at the rec, if you haven't seen it. There's talk of a third drop-off center. And we're estimating right now by our tracking mechanisms that we're diverting at least another 100 tons of organics out of the waste stream. So we're making great progress towards our goal. Number 3 and 4, You can tie them together in retrospect. At the time we wrote these in late 2021, they seem like separate goals, but to support updating the town's baseline greenhouse gas emissions profile. And number 4 was to actively support applying for grants and funding to reduce emissions and to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And the first one was really critical to us because with a town with limited resources, the best way to point our resources is by identifying where we could make the biggest impacts with greenhouse gas emissions, and you can't do that without a good baseline. But we were successful in a recent award, a $50,000 award, to complete that greenhouse gas inventory and emissions reduction plan. And GPCOG and Bowdoin College are going to be helping staff with that effort. So that, I think, is a real win in progress. And then finally, on the public education and communications efforts, I'd mark this one as good progress. Still work to do, but on the bright side, we had a lot of great effort around publicizing the organics effort, using a lot of tools with a creative intern and social media, print media, all kinds of ways to reach out to people to get the word out. A sustainability webpage was built on the town's website, and we spoke or tabled at numerous public events, including the Senior Expo, which was really well received. So we'd call it a pretty good year for 2022 in terms of making great progress on many of our goals. For 2023 now, these are the 6 goals before you. Simplified versions, there's a work plan behind every one of these. Number 1 is to improve our solid waste and recycling programs, and that's a simplified way of saying now that we're part of EcoMaine, now we should be taking full advantage of the resources they have to offer in terms of public education. Second is to standardize and report on the town's solid waste management metrics. We think this is really important to make these metrics, our solid waste, recycling, organics, to be able to track those better and to be able to share those with the public better. So we're going to work on that with Jay and his team. Third is develop long-term recommendations regarding any potential adjustments to the town's solid waste management contracts for disposal, recycling, and collection. You did hear we just entered into a 10-year contract with EcoMaine. There's still some opportunities within these contracts that we should be on the lookout for and make sure we're checking in with them to see if there's any adjustments that might make fiscal or technical sense for the town. Fifth is to develop recommendations to the council for the town's conversion to electric and low-emission vehicles and supporting the infrastructure for that, for those kinds of vehicles. And many of you have heard Maine's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions is the transportation sector. And I know there's some active things going on right now, and I think we're going to make some progress on this year. And number 6 is to support direct services to Brunswick's residents to implement conservation measures and to convert to renewable energy. And the backstory behind this is it would be focused mostly towards moderate and low-income residents. So those are our 6 goals for the year. A lot of work to do. That's all we had to present, and we'd love to get your questions and your feedback on where we're headed.
Yep. Councilor Cleese.
Thank you, Jamie. This is an excellent set of achievements and future goals for 2023. The council, I think, recently got a piece of correspondence, and I don't think it's the first time we've got it, calling for the electrification of buildings, the municipal buildings themselves. I know that's obviously it's a heavy lift, but what has your committee discussed that all in the context of any of these 2023 goals? And do you have any preliminary thoughts on it at all?
Yeah, I'm going to defer. If we have any knowledge about it, it might rest with Mr. Weems. I have not heard specifically about that.
Well, good evening. Steve Weems, Vice Chair. Two comments on that. One is on the sixth goal that Jamie mentioned, direct services, we're going to try to ramp up the information we can provide citizens throughout the community on how to install, how to get subsidies for heat pumps, where the information sources are, where the contractors are, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll be providing that kind of information on the electrification of buildings and on municipal buildings. We hope that that's an outcome of the work on goal number 1, which is to get mitigation actions out of the greenhouse gas assessment and some initial recommendations on what to do about it. And those will be oriented towards municipal buildings.
Yeah, and it sounds, Dan, like there might be more to it. That it'd be great if you could share that with us if there's
I'd be
some more
happy to.
details. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to dive into that.
Councilor Walker?
Thank you, Chair. Not a question. I just wanted to thank both Jamie and Steve for their dedication to these issues and their professionalism on the committee. It's been a pleasure working with you the past few years, and I learn something every time. So anyone watching out there, this is a committee you want to be on. So that 9th member, step up. You'll love it.
Councilor Eppergraf?
We have a nice member a nice person who has stepped up. Stay tuned to the end of the meeting. Thank you both. I couldn't agree with Councilor Walker more. I am so impressed with this committee. It's like you're a corporate entity or something. This is just really above and beyond what we kind of expect, and I think it's a wonderful job that you're doing, and thank you for the extraordinary presentation this evening.
Thank you for the compliments.
Though I think this might be the one committee that might take umbrage at being considered a corporate entity.
And forgive me for that. I'm sorry. I do apologize.
I want to be respectful.
Councilor Walker? Sorry, Councilor Watson. I was looking at you. I just,
Well, I got a black, he's got a blue.
yeah, okay.
Prior to the meeting, we were talking about some of the initiatives that we're trying to do with the Appointments Committee, and one of the things was PSA announcements or a program from the respective committees. And you mentioned that your committee was working on that. So when, and this is unfair, I know, but when, do you have any expectations when the citizens of the town of Brunswick will be able to see PSAs about your programs and what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it?
Yeah, so we have a concept of 1 or 2 PSAs, one around the organics initiative and one around recycling. Some things are a little bit outside of my control, one being we are hopeful to do these with students from the high school, from the environmental club, and maybe some others. So we're going to have discussions with them this month about that, and hopefully something will come out of it over the coming months. That's maybe the best timing I can give you today.
And just remind them that this is marketing the town.
I've got that, yep.
All right. Any further questions? Thank you both. It was a very good presentation.
You're welcome, thank you.